Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trader Merlin Show is your trading week wrap up, the weekend edition. Cheers, everybody. It's Folly and Fable today. So George is here today. Thank you for the whiskey. Appreciate it. Nice, just a little sip of whiskey there. So cheers, everyone. Hope it was a good week for you. Actually, looking at the end of the week numbers for me was pretty much break even. Unfortunately, you guys know I'm holding that Amazon, which I will just start there. Been holding this Amazon the last 5 days. Didn't help much, down about $3.30 over the last 5 trading sessions. So that wasn't so good, but luckily I had some trades today on the S&P short, which netted me a nice chunk of change. So we'll call it a wash for the week. And I did make some new trades, which I'll tell you about here in just a second. But I want to do a little bit of a trading week wrap up, which has this kind of graphic here, kind of an ugly Friday. It's a Friday that erased a lot of gains. And I'm really kind of surprised at how quickly it happened. Of course, a lot of this is tech-based, and there was some questions from the viewers. Some questions from the viewers regarding today's price action. And one of the questions came through from John was, is this the bend at the end? Well, look, you can make that argument back here when we had this big sell-off for the NASDAQ through November, right? Today certainly was an easy moment from a short perspective because you've had this aggressive rally up. We were kind of stuck in this sideways supply zone that I've mentioned here. That's between 25,623 and 25,880. And today we just not only fell out of it, but we just cratered out of it. So that was a pretty good one. I was trading the S&P today, not the NASDAQ, which most of my futures trades are done on the S&P. Although I should have been on the NASDAQ today because that's where most of the pain was. But you had a 1.96% slide in the NASDAQ, which literally erased 2+ weeks worth of trading. Big Eb says, I think this is manipulation by institutional investors. It could very well be. Very well could be. You know, given the lack of... Big Eb, you talked about this on Wednesday when we did our show with Bill Addis. You were saying, I think that Thursday is going to be that sell-off day. And this is where the markets just keep you on your toes because I thought it was going to be a down day on Thursday as well. And lo and behold, what do we get? We actually had a fairly bullish day, right? We had a bit of a reversal. It sold off and then had a nice bullish day. And there was also a question, I believe it was from Ollie, who is, I think you're here. There you are. He asked, is this, I think it was either you or Naum asked, is this a bull trap? And that bull trap, I didn't think that it was. The way we closed yesterday and just kind of market momentum led me to believe that we would see probably a bullish day today, rallying up and testing those all-time highs. And today we did gap up on the S&P. Let me just bring it up here. We did gap up on the S&P, but yeah, just no follow-through today at all. Could be institutional manipulation. Given the fact the Fed pretty much didn't say anything very positive about 2026, that led me to believe that we were going to see more downside movement. But the fact that we saw Thursday so bullish changed my mind. And all of a sudden, the market just whipsaws you around. So unfortunately for some of my swing positions, like my Amazon and a couple others, took a bit of a hit today. The good news is that's not all I'm doing, right? I have all kinds of other trades going on and ways to generate income streams using options and futures and just outright equity. So not the best week. I would love to have had Amazon had a nice, more of an upside move, but we did not get that. And you just have this big engulfing candle, which we'll talk more about here in just a second. So to the point of, is it a bull trap? Well, I guess at this point it is, right? Because you had that breakout through that overhead supply. Typically, I'd be looking for more of a bull trap when we break out to all-time highs, right? Where it really starts to rip and then comes screaming back down. But I do agree with some of the comments here that this is institutional manipulation. I mean, you look at the volume here today on the S&P. There was a lot of emotion going on here. It was a big day. Not the highest spike of volume that we've seen, but pretty ugly. Yeah, Les says it engulfed 2 days. It actually, technically, if you look at it, you could say we engulfed a week, right? Almost 2 weeks on that S&P. Really, the NASDAQ's the one that's just kind of crazy. Although we don't have the topping tail. This is just nothing but down pretty much all day long. So pretty ugly day for the NASDAQ. Now, all my covered calls are safe. Good for you. That's, wouldn't surprise me there. I had the micro strategy. I'll just show you guys that now so I can get that out of the way before I forget. These are the positions I have on. I had sold the MSTR 160 puts. So I had the MicroStrategy 160 puts that I sold for expiring today. That was at the 160 strike, and you can see the premium collected was 175. Those expired worthless. I sold them again today. Surprisingly, got just about the same amount. I got a $1.73, which will give me a little over 1%. And yeah, I am playing with fire. I know your guys' opinions on MicroStrategy. I do as well. Again, this is not a massive position. Well, I guess it depends on whose account, but it's certainly a sizable one, but not taking up my whole account and not putting me in too much danger here. Right now, Amazon is the largest one that I have for the Trader Merlin portfolio that I share with you guys on a daily basis. So that's the only positions I have right now. I have no options on Amazon. I wanted to sell some covered calls this week, but I just didn't find an opportunity where I felt comfortable with it. I still am of the bullish mindset that we're going to see Amazon have a little bit of a rally here, even though tech looks awful. So let me dive into that segment of the market here. Ooh, it was pretty ugly. There are a lot of people saying that this is the beginning of the end. And since John said, is this event at the end? Let me dive into that here real quick. There's a lot of tech stuff at play. The earnings from Oracle. And I wanted to dig a little bit before I got into deeper discussion with this on you. But I looked a little bit at some of the Oracle numbers, and it is scary what they are doing. So from the peak that it had after that made Larry Ellison the richest man in the world, from peak to trough, you're looking at Oracle is down 46% in the last 66 days. Wild, right? Massive pain. In looking at the numbers, and I have to look down at some notes that I took today, so bear with me. I hate when I have to read notes, but Oracle obviously had an earnings issue. They beat earnings, but they lowered their forecast. Yeah, and Big Ollie says the Oracle was a major hit. To me, there's more to it than this. Remember how entrenched Oracle is in the AI scene, right? And I've voiced my concern on this one before. I did not think it would be coming to fruition just yet, but it feels like the things we've talked about for the past 3 weeks on the show, which were OpenAI is way above their skis, way over the tips of their skis. And one of the stats from the conference call was that the value of forward contracts, basically the contracts that Oracle has for customers going forward, skyrocketed 360% to $455 billion worth of new orders coming in. And that sounds phenomenal, especially when you look at Oracle and their data centers. Great, there's going to be more and more of those. That sounded so phenomenal, and that's part of the reason we saw this big spike up here. Was like obviously earnings, but also the announcements of so much money coming in. What percent, did you guys tell me, what do you think? Of that $455 billion, how much of that number is OpenAI? And of course, because I'm presenting it in this manner, I'm sure you guys realize it's a pretty large number there. And it's crazy for a business to have such a reliance on the hope that OpenAI can come up with this money. Not quite 90%. It's 300 billion of it. So granted, the good news is Oracle's got $155 billion worth of new contracts coming from other people, but 300 billion is a monstrous number. Now, the good news is Oracle is building out data centers, and that's going to cost them a lot of money. I'm hearing numbers like $100 billion to build all this stuff out. If they can build it out, the concern I had was that OpenAI doesn't deliver, doesn't pay. That would be obviously pretty detrimental to the entire market right now. However, AI, given its current run rate, its current course, trajectory, where it's headed, you're going to need more data centers. So even if OpenAI goes bankrupt and cannot pay for that $300 billion tab with Oracle alone, Oracle could most likely sell that rack space, that infrastructure to other companies demanding it. And this is, to me, the first real warning shot that I think we're seeing where companies are concerned about that CapEx expenditure. How much money Oracle is spending on AI, how much money Broadcom is spending on AI. That was another one today. I was really looking at selling some puts on Broadcom today, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I'm just being ultra conservative the last part of this year, I guess. But we had a pretty ugly couple days here for Broadcom. Off their earnings last night, which beat. They were already down in the after-hour session, then just continued to sell off all day long. I mean, it opened up around 380, closed around 360. Right now, you're at 359 in the after-hour session. So a $46 slide for Broadcom in one day, 11.43%. And what was some of the comments there? AI expenditure, CapEx, and just not having the numbers that people were expecting going forward. So if we see this bad news from Oracle, we see this bad news from Broadcom, my question now is, the other recipients of this, I'm going to call it liar loans. I don't know what to call it. You guys come up with a better name for it, but I can't. What would you call it when a company just promises that they're going to buy all this stuff from you, but you don't know if they're going to deliver? I'm not going to call it liar loan. That sounds like it pretty bad, but it's pretty ugly for Broadcom, man. That's a pretty, I don't know. Man, I'm not poetic with my words today, Liz. I just need more whiskey and I'll be much more poetic. Let me just have another sip here. You guys are good. Both of you at the same time said a bunch of BS. Again, Alex and Big Ebs here said it's BS. I don't know if I would call it BS. Because think about it. If he can position himself and OpenAI to be at the forefront of AI, and also to position themselves to be integrated in all these other companies' platforms, whether that's Microsoft, which is already involved with OpenAI, whether that's getting involved, obviously not Google, but maybe getting involved with Amazon and all these other major companies out there, then you start to really entrench yourself in the space and you become that kind of go-to AI company, which is what they want to do. Again, if they can pull it off, and I don't know, percentage-wise or statistically what the odds are, but man, if they can pull it off, then they will be the biggest player in the industry. I just don't think they're going to do it. I think that there's just way too much promises being built in. So there we go. How about overcooked? I like that. Overcooked. Overzealousness by OpenAI and Sam Altman. But I think you're going to hear this story get much bigger, right? And we've been talking about this for a while of how this $1.5 trillion worth of promised investments from OpenAI sounds great. It's part of the reason you're seeing these AI companies rock to the upside. But if they don't deliver, what happens? You could also look at NVIDIA. Today was down 3.2%, 3.27. Still not terrible, right? If you look at the low line here, 164 is kind of the low price for NVIDIA that I'd be concerned with. I've voiced my concern simply because NVIDIA just hasn't really had the steam and momentum that it used to have. We were making higher highs all the way up here till early November. Then all of a sudden we started to make some new lows. And we have not been able to get back up to those highs at $210. So I'm sure someone here will probably point out that this kind of looks like a head and shoulders pattern. If I were to draw lines through here, you could start to see just general weakness in this pattern going forward. So NVIDIA is starting to show a few cracks here just from its price action. It's just not good because as goes NVIDIA, I think so goes the rest of the equity markets. And is this that turn at the end? Not yet. In my opinion, not yet. I think we have to wait for new lows to be put in, and that's a ways away. For a new low to be put in on NVIDIA here, I think you'd need to get down to about another 6.22%, which, that's not that far away considering today was a 3% down day for NVIDIA. But that dragged down a lot of stuff with it. Amazon got pulled down today, 1.78%. Of course, I was unhappy about this one, but I'm okay. I'll hold a long haul. And notice it has a similar picture. Right around 210, which is a bit more than 6% from current levels. That would be 7%. But it's kind of that same line that we looked at there with NVIDIA. And again, once we get below those, I think that we're kind of in some real trouble here for these broader markets, especially the tech side of things. If you look at Meta, Meta's already broken those lows. Those lows were broken back here on the October 31st earnings announcement. And it just has not been able to recover since. So this is not a good chart either. Google still looking fantastic, although starting to show some weakness, right? We got Naum says thinking of dumping Meta. Probably not a bad idea. I mean, look at that chart. We talk about the trend is your friend until the bend at the end. Technically, that trend, for me, from my perspective, that trend was broken back here in April of this year when it broke the swing low from November of 2024, right? That's where I would say should have been out. Of course, it did rally up to $780, so great. But once we had that earnings and it started to make new lows, those are the points you got to get out at. So, I mean, the good news for Meta is we did have a supply zone that it broke through. It retested it. We had a very volatile day today. Let me show you your intraday chart here. Of course, it could be just bogus print. Yeah, okay, that was a bogus print. I saw that and it looked really odd. I didn't recall that making that big of a high. Somehow I got a bogus print here. Gotta love when that just skews your whole chart. At least we have it coming back into demand, and I would expect this to hold. If we start to get below the lows from November, which is right around 580, then I might have an issue with Meta, but we'll see. I think that there's a little more pain here in tech. Now, Microsoft, since we're on that Magnificent Seven, this one, let me get rid of some of these lines. I got way too many things drawn here. It's kind of messy. Microsoft doesn't look good either. It finally had a double top formation. It broke down below our little yellow demand zone that I had drawn in there, and now it's stuck below it. It can't raise its head and get above it. So you got consolidation after a pretty aggressive sell-off. Remember, it sold off from $555 all the way down to a low of $465. And now it just can't get its feet underneath it. So this is not a good sign, especially since it's one of the most valuable companies. It's going to have the biggest impact. This and NVIDIA have the biggest impact on the NASDAQ 100 and the S&P. So not that great. Apple, though, I think the holiday season is going to continue to push Apple higher. The trend is beautiful on this one, even though it's had a sell-off over the past couple weeks. Still in that great upturn. And, of course, Tesla, I think, in a world of its own. Yeah, I think Tesla's an outlier. We had a guy, Tom, on this program. He used to always tell me that Tesla is just a car company. It's just a car company. And myself and Don Fraun were always going, no, this is a tech company. It's a tech company that sells cars. And unfortunately, they're doing great. Okay. Let's see, Luis, can we do a show on how you look at a day to determine if it's going to be a bullish or bearish day? Well, I kind of do that every day here. Luis, when I wrap up the show, I come up with certain things that I feel are going to be bullish for the market that day and certain things that might be bearish for that next day. I would say a majority of the time I have a good read on where things are going to go. The last 2 days, not at all. I would say the last 2 days I was exact opposite from my opinion about where markets are going to go. I thought today was going to be a bullish day, yet I still made money shorting the S&P today. So, yeah, just follow how I wrap. When I do this stuff here, when I run through our markets and go through them, that is me telling you how I'm thinking my setup for the next day. For example, you look at this NASDAQ. Obviously, it's Friday. Markets are closed. Based off what I see here, if tomorrow was a normal day, I would expect a gap down, and I would expect this market to have more pain. It feels like today was just one of those kind of shock and awe moments for tech, and people kind of freaking out a little bit. We talked about Oracle, we talked about Broadcom, but you looked at some of the Mag 7 stocks, and they were getting crushed today. It was just not a good day for them. A lot of times that snowballs and continues into more momentum to the downside. Am I going to be right 100% of the time? Not even close. Not even close. But at least I'm trying to put those odds in my favor by going with what the momentum is for that security or for that overall market based off what I see on those price charts. It being Friday, I may have saved the market. I think so too, Steve. I think that, it didn't end in terror mode, right? We were only down 1.9% for the NASDAQ. Grand scheme of things, come on, 1.9%, no big deal. Now, if we were down 5% in the NASDAQ, now that's going to make some butts pucker, right? That'll make people freak out a little bit, and then people go home and they're like, "Oh, just sell it. I don't want to take any losses," and they just start selling their stuff and calling their brokers. Those types of days create panic, and we're not there. Will we get one? I think we will. And they always pop up every now and again, but I don't think we'll get one before the end of the year. I think this is just a blow-off event here. I do think that over the weekend we'll probably stabilize. We'll wait and see what happens with the futures on Sunday night, barring any other macroeconomic issue or problems. My guess is you'll probably see a little bit of follow-through to the downside on Monday, but again, that's days and days and days away. I don't know. What did Ollie say here? Yeah, actually, there's a couple questions I got on this one about the SpaceX IPO. Oh, man. The speculation is most likely later in 2026. And I think it will be one of the highest priced IPOs ever. And again, I think it has a lot to do with Starlink, of course, taking over communications. We will have antitrust, I am sure of that. We'll see how that works. And of course, when you have Elon Musk trying to buddy up with President Trump, and which he should be doing if you're in that situation. But for me, it's SpaceX, I think, is a decade to 20-year play. If you look at who is going to pioneer space exploration and multi-planet species, right? Getting humans on multiple planets and living on multiple planets, I don't think there's anybody in a better position right now than Elon Musk, and that's his goal. If that gets pulled off, you're talking about a new world, right? We're talking about inhabiting a new world, and that just has, to me, a monstrous valuation to SpaceX, especially if they're the ones going to be the primary delivery, at least for now, until Blue Origin or NASA gets their act together or other countries get on it. But right now, it seems like nobody's coming close to doing what Elon Musk is doing in that space. So I'm excited about it. Let's see. Mike says, isn't there a seasonality for a decline in December due to tax loss selling? This is something my dad told me about 50 years ago, and it's fairly frequent in December. Yes. So what you typically get with institutions is at the end of the year when they wrap up their books, they want to look smart. Everybody wants to look smart. So not most, but many institutions, if it gets near the year end and they have losing positions, so let's say, I don't know, give me a losing position here. I got to try to figure out who's been losing. They don't want to have that on their books. So they'll sell their losers and they buy into the winners. So when they do their end of year wrap up and send out their prospectus, they don't have this junk in their portfolio, but they do have the good stuff. So yes, you do get end of year tax harvesting, tax selling, etc. But it moves out of stocks that are losers and typically moves into stocks who are winners. So to me, it's a net positive for the big leaders in the industry. That being said, who are those leaders? Well, obviously, NVIDIA is going to be at the top of that list, right? Let's go here and do an annual chart. So this is 12 months. This means, oh man, this is such a great chart. Just so we can see visually what it has done this year. So there we go with NVIDIA, great year. We'll go from the close of last year to where we are right now, 30% gain, which is better than what the equity markets are doing. Amazon, not a great year. Meta, still a good year. Google, phenomenal year. Google's having one of the best years, ever in its history. Percentage-wise, 63% so far this year for Google. Microsoft, great year. Apple, great year. Tesla, great year. So money's going to flow into these stocks because they're the winners. Now, if we go out into other things, and I don't have a lot of individual stocks on here, but you could look at market segments like, everything's looking just rosy this year. Utilities will probably be a little bit, no, everything's green. Everything looks just absolutely fantastic right now. So what's going to get sold? Whatever those losing positions are. And they'll just put themselves in positions that are winning. That's typically how that end of year tax harvesting, window dressing works, right? You sell your garbage, you put your money in the good stuff, so it looks like you've been right all along. We are 30 to 50 years away from that, in my opinion. From inhabiting Mars, yes. Elon Musk was saying 20. Yeah. Elon Musk was saying about 20 years. I hope I'm around to see it. I would love to see Life on Mars. One of my favorite Dexter Wansel songs. Great name. Nice. We're Happy Friday. Where's the whiskey? There's the whiskey. This is Folly and Fable from George in Orlando, from Orlando. So thank you very much for that. Elon took 10 years to build a truck. Well, true. And how long has he been building rockets? How long has he been building rockets? Right, years. He's getting it down. You want an interesting story? Read the book on Elon about SpaceX and how that all started. I thought it was really interesting. He was trying to buy used rockets from Russia, and he finally just said, well, screw it, I'm just going to make my own. I thought that was really, really cool. Let me see what else you guys got here. 20 my butt. We were still waiting for the semi. True, no. True. I'm being optimistic, right? I'm giving you Elon Musk years. He needs another 10 years to fix that truck. Ugly. That was a one-off. The semi, I think, is going to be the next big step for him, for Tesla, when we get trucking. And if you get autonomous trucking, oh my goodness. I don't know about you guys, but I used to do a lot of long-haul driving. So my house is up in Northern California, and I'm here in Southern, so I would get on the I-5, and invariably you get stuck behind trucks. And then they decide to pass, right? And then as soon as the truck goes to pass on a two-lane road, it's like they go from 65 down to 50. Come on, man. And you have to wait 5 minutes for that truck to pass the other truck. It's just a nightmare. Imagine it's all automated. Every truck doing the same speed. They're all batteries, so there's no sluggishness up the hills. Just go, go, go. Love it. True, Wolf. True. Definitely agree with that. All right. Maybe I'm being a little bit optimistic. We already have it. It's just laws that won't let them go. True. Technology is there. We'll get better. Let's go and look at, so this is with regards to SpaceX, and this is from Michael G. Michael says, with regards to SpaceX going public next year, do you think that might boost the prices for competitors in this space as well as ASTS from all the hype? What about Kathy Wood's fund that has 7.7% exposure to SpaceX? Would that rally as well? Okay. Great question. I think space exploration is going to become a really hot topic. What's going to happen is, at least my hypothesis, don't know if I'm right, you guys let me know what you think, but my hypothesis would be that we're going to get into outer space, most likely the moon. I saw that Wolf just posted there, he wants to get to the moon within 5 years. Well, who knows? Did we get to the moon? That's an area of contention. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that say that was total BS. I personally think we got there, but who knows? If they got there with like the most primitive electronics, like we should be able to get there no problem. It's just there was no real financial incentive. Well, my guess is we'll get to the moon and show the technology of the Boring Company, which would be like digging holes for us to inhabit underground, all the infrastructure, solar, all that piece of technology. Once they can prove that, then I think you're going to have a lot of competition. I think there will be a space race again like it was in the 60s, but this time definitely multi-planet. Mars obviously is the most logical target, but there could be other ones. Les says absolutely went to the moon. Les worked for NASA, so Les is, of course, he's on the paid agenda to say that we went to the moon. I believe we went to the moon as well, but there's a lot of people that don't believe that. That was done in a studio. Conspiracy theorists around, and of course, the Earth is still flat, right? To what end does space exploration make money? And that's the point. I think the point will be, we'll prove that we can get to another planet, whether it's the moon or Mars, most likely the moon, to set up a base there. And then it'll probably be tourism, right? It'll probably be tourism would be my guess on the moon. That'll probably be 10 years out. But then we get to another planet, and what about natural resources? Right? We may have natural resources on those planets that we don't have here, or much more abundance of those natural resources. Granted, we'll have others that aren't there, like water. I'll figure out how to do all that, but I think the value is you have a place to go if the stupidity of our leaders leads us to some nuclear war, some nuclear fallout, or we get hit by an asteroid, who knows what the case may be. Then you ultimately end up saving humanity. At what cost is that, right? We've been hit by many asteroids over the lifetime of Earth, however long you want to say it's been, billions and billions of years. But what happens if we get a big one, right? And cracks the Earth crust, or sends us into a geosynchronous orbit that's no longer in the same spin that we had before, or it shifts our trajectory and all of a sudden we become closer to the sun every year and fry half the Earth. There's all these hypotheticals that could happen. At least for me, I'd much rather know that there was the potential to have another place for civilization to go to continue on. But we can go look at the question here from Michael is, well, what about Kathy Woods? I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, what about ARKK, the technology fund, the innovation fund? You can't get SpaceX in the innovation fund. It's not in there. All of Kathy Woods' ETFs that exist are publicly traded companies. So everything in Kathy Woods' portfolio is publicly traded. So what Michael's talking about is a fund. It's not an ETF, and it's I think the ticker symbol is ARKVX, and you'll see it trades like a mutual. It trades like a mutual fund. So here is your daily. So you've got your net asset value. Trades at one price per day. It's hard to see this chart. I know it's real hard to see, but if you want to get exposure to it, yeah, you could buy ARKVX, and that does have some exposure to SpaceX. It also has exposure to XAI and X.com as IPO potential. So, if you're like me and you think that there could be big upside in the long run, yeah, this could be a way to go, is buy ARKVX. But how long you got to wait? I think the Origin, Blue Origin, Origin's not even close to SpaceX. The thing they did with their wives was such a joke. I'm sorry, that was absolutely ridiculous. He just kind of it's like the thing at the fair that kind of shoots you up and then drops you down real slow. That's all they did. They really didn't do anything. Whereas Elon Musk is every day launching dozens and dozens of satellites into space, and Blue Origin's nowhere near. But it's cool. But how does it make trillions of dollars? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Blue Origin's a plane. I'm pretty sure that there will be a big government spending to be the government that has that base, right? If we look at, let's just say hypothetically that we start to look at populating Mars, right? Who's going to do that? Is that going to be SpaceX? Is SpaceX going to be the one that's now going to be colonizing Mars? Or does the U.S. government say, we're not going to allow your missiles to launch, Mars is ours, and you can do all these flights, we'll pay you huge money to send our stuff there, but Mars is ours, right? There's going to be a power struggle there on who owns Mars and who owns what on Mars. And I think that's where the money will come from. The money will come from governments saying we want to have control over that planet. So when we finally do get to a point where it's bad for us, we'll have a place to go. So yeah, I do think space stocks could do real well. Let's look at ASTS. I don't look at ASTS much. Great chart. I mean, really good chart. Other than this extreme volatility, you see higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. Pretty cool. But this is a tough one for me because I think it's so long term. Like I say, 20 years. Some of you were scoffing at 20, thinking maybe like 30 or 40 years. Yeah, absolutely. It could be a very long time for this to pay out. And I think that there's speculation about the success of these ones. I think that the money from SpaceX will come from the satellites first, and then the telecommunications, and then they'll spend more money on privatization to get up there. Let's see. Blue Origin has a lot of buildings around Cape Kennedy. I think Les can see Cape Canaveral from his house. Alex says, to make this happen, what should we be looking at derivatives, materials-wise, to invest in, like aluminum, tin, gold? In reading the book or listening to the book about Elon Musk, a lot of it is steel. These rockets were just steel, not like some complex polymer. I don't know enough about it to make that statement there, Alex. I would look and see what are the major ingredients for these boosters, for these rockets, right? What are the Falcon 9s built out of? What's the new Starship going to be built out of? Because ultimately the Starship is going to be a prototype for mass production of these rockets that will be in sequence being launched off into space when that window opens, because I think there's a very limited window of time to get to Mars, and it takes a long time to get there. We like to watch the SpaceX rockets from Red Dog. Oh, you're over by Vandenberg, Trader? Oh no, you're in Florida. You forgot, you're by Orlando. Yeah, I'd love to see that thing land. That's got to be pretty cool. Like a giant cigar falling out of the sky and then just rights itself and lands on a boat. Pretty amazing. I hope we don't ever get to another planet. We will ruin that as well, in my opinion. Probably will. But I'd much rather us have two planets. Growing up as a kid, and I know we have some older generation here too, the talk track was always, Russia and United States going into nuclear war. And when that happens, we've obviously launched many, many nuclear warheads over the course of history here in the world, but what happens if we have that moment where some idiot just says, oh, I'm launching our full arsenal, and then all of a sudden it's reciprocated, and then China jumps in, it's like, well, we're launching ours, and next thing you know, we cause all kinds of problems. I mean, hopefully it never happens. We should all just appreciate what we have and live in peace, but unfortunately, our governments and our leaders won't let that happen. So there you go, Michael. I would say your best play is going to be buying into that fund that holds it, which is ARKVX, that has a lot of venture investments of private companies in there. What else did I have for today? We talked about John's asking if this is the bend at the end. I don't know, but it certainly is starting to feel a little bit weaker on the broad markets. Even when you look at things like the S&P, the chart looks good. Chart looks great. And I wouldn't say that this is the bend at the end on the S&P. The S&P just stalling out near all-time highs. That's okay. This is SPY, by the way, so we're not looking at futures and looking at the actual market. It just feels like it's slowing down here a little bit. Nothing to worry about yet. Now, the question is next week, do we get some follow-through? Because SPY's got some pretty big gaps that have happened over the past month. Does it come back and retest 653? I don't think so. But you look at the triple Qs, a little bit weaker, right? Much more of a rollover action from today's price, simply because of Oracle and Broadcom and just kind of the concern that AI CapEx spending is way, way, way higher than it needs to be, and that may get scaled back here. That could cause some profit taking to happen on NASDAQ, which I think could continue. Now, again, I have lines, well, no lines on this one. We're on 581 is that point where you have your uh-oh moment. We're a long way away from that. Long way away from that, at least in my opinion. Let's see. Mike says, Merlin, how long, if you know, does it take for Starlink satellite orbit to degrade and fall back to Earth? I have no idea. I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, you look at how many he's launching, every time, it seems like I'm getting it feels once a week, almost minimum. The other week there were 3 launches out of Vandenberg, and I know you're launching some out of Starbase in Texas. You're launching some out of Cape Canaveral. So you've got those 3 bases launching tons of rockets and satellites. I don't know. I don't know what the longevity of those satellites is, but there's got to be a pretty impressive network up there right now. Maybe one day I'll do a show on it. Oh, you did, Big Al? You saw Atlanta at San Pedro Pier? It's on a boat, right? It's, what do they call it? I'm happy you returned. It's got some funny name to the boat, but there you go. Big Eb says it's about 7 years. And I don't know how easy it would be to replace those those satellites either, because obviously they're going to have a specific position in their grid overall, but 7 years? That's about right. Naum says, is the market pulling back because of Powell stating no to bank on any more rate cuts? No, I don't. I think that that's a piece of it, right? Again, we have multiple things. Welcome, Dan. Happy Friday. I think it's multiple things, Noam. I think number one is Wednesday's statement from Jerome Powell that, look, don't bank on rate cuts in 2026. And we're already seeing that priced in. If you look at the current rate situation, it does not speak well of future rate cuts. All the way through 2027, of course, you know my opinion about that. Like, why would you care about 2027? It's so far away, and no one knows what the heck's going on there. But if we scroll down here and go to December of 2027, it's saying that they expect it to be 3 to 3.25%. That's 2 rate cuts in the next 24 months, 2 more rate cuts. Markets don't like that. So yeah, I think that that's part of it. But I think that the bigger piece, at least in my opinion, again, we can all differ on opinions, I think it's the AI overhype for right now is the piece that's going to drag it down. AI is here to stay. I made this abundantly clear. I love AI. I think AI is absolutely fantastic. But I think it got a little bit ahead of itself with all the spending. And it's been, we've all been rewarded for great gains in our portfolios, our long-term investments on it. But realistically, the amount of capital that these companies are doing, expending on it, they haven't gotten that rate of return yet. Now, you can hang your hat on expected returns for the next year or two, but at a certain point, you got to stop spending unless you're seeing returns immediately. At least starting to see some returns for it. I think it's just the Grinch stole Christmas. Nah, I think we'll be fine. I think we might sell off a little bit, but remember, the Santa Claus rally is only the last 2 trading days a year and the first 5 of January. So we've got a long way to go before we get to that one. Last year it did not work out. Remember, I did my little Santa tracker. I think I will try to do my Santa tracker again this year if I can find the graphics. I made a cool little page where I can track the performance of the S&P. Those last 2 days and first 5, which are generally a 1.3% gain for the S&P. That's the Santa Claus rally. I think new traders believe that Santa Claus rally is the whole month of December. Not the case. And so far, when we look at, let's say, the SPY here, if we'll do a vertical line on SPY just from January or December 1st, so far we're flat to negative for December, and I think that could change because as 2 indexes were green this week and 2 were down less than 2%. Yeah, choppy, inconsistent. You look at the Dow. So let's go bring up the Dow here since I brought that one up yesterday's all-time highs, and it sold off a little bit today. But you've got the Dow, phenomenal, right? Since December, it's been one of your better performers, surprisingly. So there you go. You've got the great move up in the Dow. You have the S&P kind of middle, down for the year. Just or at least feels like it's sideways for the year. Of course, the Russell looking great for the year, but you had a huge engulfing pattern today. So let's talk about that real quick because I think Mike asked me this question on silver, but we can also convey that over into these other indexes. Before I do that, let me read these questions. You guys have sent a whole bunch here. Can you look at the seasonality chart for the markets? I don't have a seasonality chart per se. I mean, we could bring them up and talk about seasonality, but I don't have like a seasonality chart that I built out. Feel data centers will have problems. Yeah, Trader Thor, I think the problem there is data centers are building out as fast as they possibly can, expecting infinite demand, and the reality is there will be a limit on demand, right? What is that? I think right now everyone's gobbling up as whatever they can get. There will come a point, in my opinion, where all of a sudden they're like, we're not going to fill all the demand. That's now. You go forward a couple of years, I think that these data centers are like, oh shoot, we overbuilt and we don't have enough demand to fill those centers because I think the technology is going to get faster, the servers are going to get smaller, more compact, more energy efficient, and they won't need as much data center stuff. So who knows? I could be totally wrong. Isn't the last 5 of December and the first 2 of January? Did I get it backwards? I may have said it backwards. Issue with communities. Stock Traders Almanac has it. Stock Traders Almanac, by the way, if you are a trader, has everything you need. It's the best book for trading statistics and historical data. Everyone should have a copy of that bad boy. Let's go look at this question here real quick. So Mike says, I took a flyer on 10 January SLV $56 puts. I'm guessing that you bought directionally the puts because it was an outside down day. What are your thoughts on positioning on an outside day? Seems to be a lot of bullishness on SLV and gold. So my thoughts are also being a bit contrarian, looking to fill the gap at 48. All right, excuse me as we go on there. Well, first off, let's talk about an outside day and a engulfing pattern. I personally lump them together and just call them basically the same thing. An engulfing pattern is one that goes in the opposite direction of the prevailing trend, which is what we are seeing here. So here you've got an engulfing pattern which engulfs the real body from the day before, but not all of the tails. So we look at the Russell here. You've got an engulfing pattern because it engulfs the real body, but the tails are still outside. So it's not really an outside day. An outside day would be like what you see on silver, which is the real body engulfs everything, tails and all, from the previous day. And those are generally viewed to be more powerful, although an outside day doesn't have to be a counter trend trade. So in this case, I know I'm getting some hate here. I'm going to call this a bearish engulfing candle. I know it's an outside day, Mike. I know that's what this is, but it's easier for me because an engulfing means it's going the opposite direction of the prevailing trend. Statistically, if you look at Bukowski's book, you guys tell me what success rate, when you have a trend that's been real strong in one direction, and then you have an engulfing candle or an outside candle that engulfs the entire thing in the opposite direction, what percentage of time does that formation work? Remember, as a trader, if we can find something with 51% probability, it's worth taking that trade as long as you have good risk management. So looking at this, Bukowski does cite statistics on this, and I went and dug it up just so I could have it. Steve says 52%. It's a little bit better than that. Vikram says 68. It's actually 68 is dead center. According to Bukowski, who has done statistics on thousands of charts of looking at these patterns, it's between 57 and 79% probability of working, meaning the follow-through that you see a sell-off. Now, according to Bukowski, the average sell-off from there is 6 to 10%. So if that's the case, that's going to put silver somewhere around 6% would be $52, and let's go all the way down, see if we get down to 10%. That will get us down to about 50. So statistically, the reason I wanted to bring this one up, Mike, is I like you said that you want that gap from, or you think that gap could get filled at 48. It could, but it would be a statistical outlier because normally, according to the data that Bukowski in his book has analyzed, we'll say it's between 6 and 10% move once you have that engulfing pattern. So that would put it at a low point of $50 or somewhere between 52 and 50, right? So I think that's a very logical target. You know, for me, I'd be looking more towards the 6%, which would be right around 62.70 because you have this 2-candle consolidation and then a big move out. So I'd be looking for that as my first target for this sell-off on silver. And again, we talked about this, like it's dangerous to short silver because it's so emotional, and we were looking for a climactic volume. Today you had higher volume, the highest volume we've seen for quite some time, and a reversal of direction. I would like to have seen this with higher volume if I felt that this is going to fall even more, but still, it's the pullback that the markets have been waiting for. Look at the data. Satcher's Almanac shows December S&P up 73% of the time in the last 50 years or whatever it's worth. Yeah. December is usually a good year, man, or a good month. It's usually a good month. I'll tell you what, I have bet against companies. Here, I'll tell you one lesson I've learned, and this is on Best Buy. I shorted Best Buy because it's a crap company. Basically, it's a retail store for Amazon. I'll go into Best Buy and I'll grab my iPhone and I'll find the items I want and I'll go buy them on Amazon and have them delivered tomorrow at 5, 10, 15% cheaper than I can at Best Buy. Although Best Buy's gotten a lot better. So I shorted in November. I'm pretty sure it was November. I bought a ton of puts. This is years ago. A ton of puts on BBY. Great. I'm reliving old injuries now. Right. The trauma, the PTSD I'm going to have from this. Let me see if I can remember where this was. I think it was 2017. Yeah, there it is. Oh, sorry. This is 2013. Man, I'm old. So here's what Best Buy did. It was actually one of the best performing stocks of 2013. You can see it just kept going. It's low price here. Its low point was $11, and it rallied all the way up to 40 plus. 296% move in 2013 for Best Buy, a garbage company. So I was shorting this thing in November, and it might have been before, I think in October, and I bought the December puts, which would have been right, yeah, that's the expiration there, December 23rd puts. And I ended up losing about $100,000 on that trade because my belief was that Best Buy is trash. And you look at what happened afterwards. If I just bought the January puts, I'd have made over $1 million on this thing. because it just cratered and had a huge gap down. Continued to just plummet. I mean, this is awesome. I love this chart. Unfortunately, I was in the December's, not the January contract, which would have been a completely different thing. What I learned from that is do not short a retail stock in December. I'll never do it again. At least not holding it long term. Like I might do a short term, day trade short or a couple days, but I'm not planning on markets crashing in December ever again, particularly for retail stocks, even though they could be absolute garbage. Man, this chart, this is torture. Yeah, it was over 100 grand, big up. But you learn. That's when Circuit City went out of business, so Best Buy absorbed their market. Maybe. I don't understand why it did so well that year, but wild that it did. Anyway, cost me a lot of money. Well, Carvana seemed trash, but then market disagrees. Apparently, yep. Exactly, Liz. And that's why you can't get hung up on your opinion. Let's look at CVNA. I still think this company's trash. This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me that they're a vending machine car reseller. And it's gone from $8 in 2023 to $457 today. Ridiculous. When did Crazy Eddie go to business? That's pretty good. Carvana up over 11,000% since 2020. I know. Wild. It's just wild. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. Like, I still don't understand why Carvana is. Now, I do understand. Where's Margaret been? Did Margaret leave us? Margaret not watching anymore? She gave up on me. If you look at Hood, Margaret was in Robinhood for quite some time. And you guys all remember back here, we were talking about how this was a trash company and was not doing well. And we had that line at $13, and it finally broke above it. Okay, fine. If you want to jump in it, they've reinvented themselves. Robinhood is positioning itself to be the leader of digital assets and trading digital assets and tokenization. So I think that is, a totally different change for Robinhood. It's a new path, new money, new opportunity. It's pretty good. I don't know where Margaret is. She was here every day. I must have said something to irritate her. I hope I didn't. Sometimes I try not to say anything that's political or religious or whatever, but sometimes I'll slip up and make a joke, and I apologize. Ask Rock, where's Margaret? Hood does something, Carvana, they just sell cars, right? They just sell cars, no big deal. Yeah, maybe it was Tom Barr. Tom's just alias. I hope Margaret's okay. All right, did I get my other question? Thanks, Liz. Oh, remember, I'm the one who wants children, so it got to be young enough to have children. But I'm still in the market. I don't know if I'm the most eligible bachelor in the world, but I'll put myself in that category. All right, so I answered Mike's question, I answered Michael's question, and I answered John's question. I showed you the positions there. Ethan wants the trade plan. You're not going to get that copy. Webull. So I'm not a huge fan of Webull. I mean, you look at the price chart, and it's a similar situation, right? Right, Harvey? We've got a stock that looks like it's dying. And I think someone asked about this a while back, and I put a line at 12.02 and said, okay, if it gets above $12, then I'll be interested in potentially buying it, right? I think it has to prove to you that the downtrend is over, and I don't think it's done that yet. Now maybe you get a little bit more aggressive. You say, okay, if it breaks this recent high at 10.37, 10.40, right? Maybe that'll be an opportunity as well. But I don't know. I don't like buying things just because they're beaten down. Seems same as Hood way back. It could be Hottie, but right now, who are the leaders in tokenization and pushing that digital asset revolution? In my mind, there's three. There's Coinbase. Right, Coinbase making an announcement next week, which I'm really eager to see what that announcement is. That should happen next Wednesday. But Coinbase leading the charge in tokenization and digital assets. Then you have BlackRock, who's been saying that they are all in on tokenization and digital assets. Time for a stock split here on BlackRock, but it's had a pretty darn good year as well, even though it had a big sell-off. BlackRock at the forefront. And then talking about tokenization of stocks and other markets, yeah, Robinhood is leading that charge. Could Webull jump in there and start to eat away some of this market share? They could. They certainly could. But the price chart tells me that they're not. Because if they really were, their stock price will be moving up more. So I wouldn't touch it for now until we start to make some new highs. Just keep that as your rule. Set an alert, right? You can go out here, double click on these lines. I think I can, where is it out here? There's a little bell up here where I can click that line and I click add alert. And I could just say, okay, every time it crosses above this, give me a beep or email me or text me, something like that. That would be the way to do it. Don't just buy it because you think it's going to be a Robinhood. Just hold off and we'll let it prove itself. Yeah, MJ. And again, this has to do with the president right here. Would not surprise me if the Trump family was buying a bunch of cannabis ETFs. Why? Because he's talking about loosening regulations. Good, right? Let's get these people who are smoking weed out of prison. I don't think they need to be there. But cannabis stocks were ripping today, and from the grand scheme of things, it has turned that corner. It turned that corner, in my opinion, back here at 22 and change, rallied all the way to 44. And if we do get federal legalization of cannabis, which I think we should have, there's too many other things to worry about versus weed. Let's just fight fentanyl and crystal meth and bath salts versus a plant that grows in your backyard. Once we get that out of the way, I think this thing could really take off. And that's what a lot of people have been waiting for. What do you think about Netflix? There are a lot of people been asking about Netflix. A lot of people talking about it today. Netflix going to have some competition here. And well, it's going to have some competition. Obviously, the Warner Brothers deal is going to be a big issue for it. I have not been a huge Netflix fan. I mean, I watch Netflix, but as a long-term investor, I think you've got to look at this as a value play, and you're saying, okay, I see that it's sold off from its peak here in July of this year to where we are today, down roughly 29%. That's still not a ton. I'd be looking, maybe selling some puts around that $83 mark, and if I got exercised, okay, I'm fine with that because that's the last area where we had a huge move up. So anywhere between, let's say, 80 and 85 bucks would be a buy point for me. I'd sell puts there, collect premium. If it gets down there, great. If not, I'm collecting premium the whole time. So that's how I would do it. The split did not help Netflix, and it usually doesn't, right? How many times have we talked about that? When you have a split and there's their split day, usually it rallies into the split, and once the split happens, it just falls apart. I mean, you can look at chart after chart after chart. It's almost always when they split, people sell half their position and take some profit. It's just kind of weird. Ollie says, we'll see, but this is a political move. Totally agree with you. Totally agree it's a political move. Let's see. I still think that these cannabis stocks are going to have a hard time. You can buy on the street or grow it for a lot cheaper. Yeah, you can. I think, I don't know what the rules are in your states, but I think out here in California, you can, I can grow 24 plants legally without any permits. I could just have 24 plants in my backyard. For those that don't know about cannabis, you can get a plant that's 20 to 30 feet tall. It's a tree, right? I can get pounds from one plant. Of course, I'm not growing weed in my backyard, but you can grow 15 plants. There you go. And you're right, but most people don't want to do that. And honestly, the quality that you're going to get from someone who is like a scientist and using all the right nutrients and just optimizing it, you're going to get a better result. But yeah, if you want it, just grow your own. Hard to grow the good stuff. Friend of mine told you. Yeah. Friend of yours told you, right, Megan? Liz says, wouldn't surprise me if legalization happens in time for the midterms. Quite coincident. Yep. One more thing you can add to the list to help boost for a specific party. All right. I'm not doing an hour show today, and I got 6 minutes left. Didn't realize you guys are trying to string me out here and get me to the 1 hour time frame. We're moving my filters, going to next week's session, which we do have decent announcements next week, but not on Monday. The 15th doesn't give us too much from the U.S. perspective. If you're trading the Canadian dollar, you do have a lot of CPI data coming out. Really, for the U.S., it's all about FOMC members speaking. You got Moran, you got Williams, you got Moran again will be speaking, and also Empire State Manufacturing Index to get a sense as to manufacturing in the New York area. But it's been doing better. It's definitely above zero, which is a good sign, but they're expecting a little bit of a contraction here as well. Earnings front, there's nothing really cooked. There is nobody for Monday. I remember this one. I was looking it up earlier. There's nothing. There's like 83 companies reporting earnings on next week total. And on Monday, no. Micron's the big one. That's going to be on Wednesday. There's a couple other ones, but Micron's the big one happening next week. So, all right, we were all over the place for today's show. I got the gloomy picture here, which doesn't look so good from the market perspective, at least on Friday. Things looking kind of ugly. Curious to see what Monday brings, or at least Sunday night when that futures market's open. Next week is a normal week. I think it's a normal week. I don't have anything slated, no trips or anything yet. I am working fingers crossed. I am trying to get to Thailand for New Year's and the first 2 weeks of January. I'm still dealing with some anxiety issues, which has made it kind of difficult. And of course, the tickets are unbelievably expensive right now. It's like, for coach, it's $3,000 to get to Thailand. But I have a friend who's there right now, and I'd love to go hang out with him. He's the guy that introduced me to all Southeast Asia. It's just fantastic. So I'll let you guys know as we get closer. But I will most likely be leaving probably the last couple days of the year and coming back probably January 12th or something like that. That's the plan anyway. If anybody has any hookups or anything, let me know. I need to get out of here. I need to go clear my head and go do something fun. I've taken no real vacations for quite some time, other than the Ireland trip, which I took with my ex, which was a great trip. But spend some money, you can afford it. Yeah, I know. I really wanted to go business class. I don't like flying 21 hours in economy. Even though I'm a small guy, I like to lay down and get some sleep the way you arrive there. So I may see if I can get. I got some points which I'm going to try to use. But United, it used to be 120,000 points for United to fly business class to Asia. They've jumped that to now 500,000. Convenient. Now that I finally have 500,000 points, like, oh no, that's only a one-way ticket. Sorry. Anyway, I'll keep you guys posted on that. If there's something you want me to discuss next week, send it on in. You guys have been driving the show with your topics, your suggestions. Again, thanks to those that send in questions. So I have Mike and Michael and John. You guys appreciate that. So if you have anything else you want me to discuss next week, let me know. It's a pretty open schedule. Maybe I'll try to bring a guest on if I can. So email me, tradermerlin@gmail.com, or comment down below any of the YouTube videos, and I will see you guys on Monday. Have a fantastic weekend, y'all. Cheers.